The scent of rain clung to his old jacket as Sam settled into the diner's booth, his service dog, Ajax, a calm shadow beneath the table. It was supposed to be a quiet meal, a small victory over the crowded places that still made his pulse race. But when a manager's polished shoe tapped his shoulder, demanding the dog leave, Sam's polite explanation died on his lips. He looked the man in the eye and said, with a quiet that was more dangerous than a shout, "He stays." What followed was a very public, ugly scene that left Sam trembling not from fear, but from a rage he thought he'd buried. He thought the battle was about a dog in a restaurant. He was wrong. As flashing lights finally pierced the diner's windows 2 hours later, they weren't from a local squad car. They were from unmarked, black SUVs, and the men who stepped out moved with a lethal, familiar grace. They weren't there for the manager. They were there for Ajax. And, in that moment, Sam knew the quiet life he'd built was over. The Friday evening rain was a soft, steady drumming against the roof of Meg's country diner. Inside, the air was thick with the greasy perfume of frying burgers and the low hum of afterwork chatter. Sam Weller sat in his usual corner booth, his back to the wall, a habit etched deeper than any scar. His hands, broad and weathered, rested on the laminated menu, though he didn't need to read it. Meatloaf special, extra gravy, coffee black. The routines were a lifeline. Beneath the table, pressed against Sam's boot, Ajax lay in a perfect, quiet curl. His fur, the color of weathered charcoal, barely seemed to move with his breath. He was a German shepherd, but not the sharp, alert kind often pictured. There was a profound stillness to him, a depth in his dark eyes that missed nothing. His red service vest, worn and slightly faded, was a badge Sam wore with a mix of pride and painful necessity. The waitress, Debbie, a woman with a kind smile and tired eyes, brought the coffee. "Evening, Sam. Rough one out there, huh?" She didn't wait for an answer, just filled the cup. Her gaze flickered to the space under the table, a quick, acknowledging nod. She knew. Most of the regulars did. Sam was the quiet veteran who came in on Fridays, always with his dog, always alone, always leaving a generous tip. Tonight, the diner was busier than usual. A large group celebrating a birthday crowded the center, their laughter loud and sudden. Sam felt the familiar knot begin to tighten between his shoulder blades. He dropped a hand below the table, his fingers finding the cool, familiar contour of Ajax's head. The dog leaned imperceptibly into the touch. A slow, deliberate breath left Sam's lungs. In, out. You're here. You're safe. Ajax's presence was a living, breathing anchor, pulling him back from the cliffs of memory that sometimes felt too close. The trouble started with the jingle of the door and a gust of damp air. A man in a crisp, blue dress shirt and khakis entered, shaking out an expensive-looking umbrella. He was with a woman in a sleek raincoat, both radiating a kind of polished impatience. The hostess, flustered by the rush, seated them in the booth directly across the aisle from Sam. Sam saw the man's eyes, sharp and assessing, sweep the room and then land under his table. The man's lips pursed. He murmured something to his companion, who glanced over and gave a slight, dismissive shake of her head. Sam focused on his coffee, the ceramic warm against his palm. Just ignore it. Their food arrived. The man cut into his steak with precise, annoyed movements. Ajax, perhaps sensing Sam's rising unease, shifted slightly, the scuff of a claw on linoleum. It was a soft sound, lost under the din of the birthday song now erupting from the central table. But the man in the blue shirt heard it. He stiffened, put his fork down with a clink. "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying. He wasn't talking to Sam. He was flagging down the manager, a nervous man named Carl who had been hovering by the cash register. The man pointed rudely with his knife. "There's a dog under that table. That's a serious health code violation. I'm trying to enjoy my meal." Carl's face paled. He wrung his hands on his apron as he approached Sam's booth. "Sir, I'm so sorry, but is that a pet? We can't have pets in the dining area, I'm afraid. It's policy." Sam kept his voice low, calm. "He's not a pet. He's a registered service animal. He's working. It's federal law, he's allowed." The man across the aisle snorted. "Working? I don't see a blind man. What's he doing, guarding your fries?" "That's just someone's mutt in a vest you bought online." A hot wire of anger flashed down Sam's spine. He kept his eyes on Carl. "He's a psychiatric service dog. For PTSD. He is medically necessary." He reached for the wallet in his jacket pocket, where a worn card from a veterans service organization documented Ajax's training. "But, Carl, sweating under the stare of the complaining customer, panicked. I'm sorry, sir, I really am. But I've had a complaint. You'll have to take him outside. Or you can get your food to go. No, Sam said, the word flat and final. The diner seemed to grow quieter. Debbie had stopped pouring coffee, her pot suspended in midair. The birthday party's laughter died down. I am not leaving. He is not leaving. We are not breaking any law. The man in the blue shirt stood up, throwing his napkin on his plate. This is ridiculous. Manager, either you handle this, or I'm calling the health department right now. And I'll be posting about this on every review site in town. Pressure from all sides. Carl's face crumpled from apology into a mask of flustered authority. Sir, I must insist. The dog goes, or you both go. Sam felt the world begin to tunnel. The clatter of plates became the rattling of old machinery. The fryer's hiss was a distant, dangerous sound from another desert. The faces staring at him weren't curious diners. They were a blur of potential threats. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of alarm. He couldn't get enough air. And then, a warm, solid pressure against his leg. Ajax had moved, not out from under the table, but firmly pressing his full weight into Sam's shin. The dog let out a soft, deep sigh, a sound that was somehow louder than the shouting in Sam's head. It was a signal, a touchstone. Ground. Now. Sam's hand shot under the table, gripping the thick fur at Ajax's scruff. The physical connection was a lightning rod, channeling the panic away. He looked up, and his eyes were no longer those of a man on the verge of a spiral. They were cold, clear, and hard as flint. He'd faced far worse than a jumped-up manager and a pompous stranger. You do not understand what you are asking, Sam said, his voice a low gravel. This dog has done more for this country, by keeping me alive and functional, than you ever will. You see a dog. I see my medic. You touch him, you ask me to move him, and you will be violating federal law and the peace of a man who has fought for your right to eat an overpriced steak in peace. Now, bring me my meatloaf, and leave us the hell alone. The silence that followed was absolute. Carl looked like he might be sick. The man in the blue shirt was purple with indignation, fumbling for his phone. That's it. I'm recording this. Assault. I feel threatened. Sam ignored him, staring down Carl until the manager scuttled away. The confrontation was over, for now. But, as Sam sat there, the adrenaline bleeding away to leave a deep, trembling exhaustion, he felt a new kind of cold settle in his gut. It was done. He'd drawn a line. In his experience, lines in the sand had a way of attracting the worst kind of attention. He just didn't know how right he was, or from which direction the storm was finally coming. The remaining hour in the diner passed in a tense, unnatural bubble of quiet. The birthday party paid their bill and left with hushed, awkward glances. The couple across the aisle, after the man made a show of filming Sam with his phone, also departed, the woman pulling her partner's arm, her expression one of mortification. Carl, the manager, vanished into the back, leaving Debbie to handle the floor. She brought Sam's meatloaf with a sympathetic, worried smile and an extra slice of pie on the house. On me, Sam, she whispered. He nodded, his appetite gone but forcing himself to eat. Routine. Normalcy. He had to cling to it. Ajax remained perfectly still under the table, but Sam could feel the subtle alertness in the dog's posture. He wasn't just grounding Sam anymore. He was on a low-grade watch. His ears would occasionally twitch, tracking sounds Sam couldn't distinguish from the kitchen noise. The dog's nose lifted once, a slight flare of nostrils, before he settled again. Sam noted it, a prickle of unease joining the soup of shame and anger in his gut. Maybe it's just the kitchen smells, he told himself. But he'd learned to trust Ajax's senses more than his own. He paid in cash, leaving a large tip for Debbie, and stood up. The simple act felt monumental. Every muscle was a coiled spring. As he zipped his jacket, the door to the diner's kitchen swung open, and Carl emerged, not to apologize, but to glare, a cell phone pressed to his ear. He turned his back quickly, but not before Sam caught a hiss. Yeah, making threats. The dog, too, seemed aggressive. Just get here, please. They were calling the cops. Of course they were. Sam's jaw tightened. It was a scene he'd hoped to never relive. Explaining himself, his disability, his dog's rights to some skeptical, overworked patrol officer. He thought about leaving before they arrived, but that felt too much like fleeing. He hadn't done anything wrong. Standing his ground was all he had left some days. He stepped out into the damp, cool night. The rain had softened to a mist, haloing the streetlights. His truck, an old Ford, sat alone at the far end of the lot. He took a deep breath, the clean air helping to clear the diner's claustrophobia. "Come on, boy," he murmured, and Ajax fell into a perfect heel at his left side, matching his pace stride for stride. They were halfway across the parking lot when the first car pulled in. Not a police cruiser, but a sleek, dark sedan with tinted windows. It parked sideways, not in a spot, but effectively blocking the exit lane. The doors opened, and two men in plain clothes, expensive-looking leather jackets, and slacks, got out. They moved with a coordinated purpose that had nothing to do with serving public safety. They scanned the lot, their gazes skipping over Sam for a moment before locking onto him, and then onto Ajax. Sam stopped walking. Every instinct, every faded fiber of his training, screamed threat. This wasn't about a restaurant complaint. These men were hunters. The taller of the two approached, a bland, polite smile on his face that didn't reach his eyes. "Samuel Weller?" His voice was calm, neutral. "Who's asking?" Sam kept his own voice steady, his hands loose at his sides. Ajax let out a low, almost inaudible rumble, a vibration Sam felt through the leash. "We need to ask you some questions about your animal." The man flashed a badge so quickly it was just a blur of gold and plastic. Department of Agriculture. Wildlife and Import Division. Wildlife and Import? The lie was so absurd it was insulting. "He's a German Shepherd, born in Kansas," Sam said flatly. "His papers are in order. You can contact his training facility, K9 Partners for Patriots." The second man had circled around, putting himself between Sam and his truck. His posture was casual, but his stance was balanced, ready. "We'll need to verify that independently. We're going to have to take the dog into custody for evaluation. There's been a question about its origins." A cold fury, purer and more focused than the diner indignation, ignited in Sam's chest. "You're not taking my dog." The sentence was simple, absolute. "Sir, do not make this difficult. It's a routine check." The tall man's smile vanished. "The animal may be carrying non-native pathogens. It's a public safety issue." Before Sam could respond, the Real police arrived, a single squad car, its blue and red lights painting the mist in swirling colors. A young officer got out, looking confused at the scene. The two agriculture men immediately turned their performative authority on him, speaking in low, urgent tones, showing their badges again. Sam saw the officer's posture change from confusion to wary deference. The officer walked over. "Mr. Weller? These federal agents have concerns about your dog. I'm going to have to ask you to comply with their request while we sort this out." "They're lying," Sam said, his eyes never leaving the two agents. "This isn't about agriculture. Ask them to specify the pathogen. Ask for the quarantine protocol." "They can't." The officer looked uneasy, caught between protocols. The shorter agent stepped forward. "Officer, this is a matter of national biosecurity. The less public chatter, the better. We need to secure the animal now." He reached for a looped cable lead on his belt. That was the trigger. As the man's hand moved, Ajax didn't snarl or bark. He simply melted into a lower, more powerful stance, his focus laser-locked on the agent's hand. Sam dropped the leash. A working dog was never held in a threat scenario. He was given the freedom to do his job. "Don't," Sam warned, his voice dropping into the command tone he hadn't used in years. "You do not want to do that." The agent hesitated, seeing something in Sam's face, in the dog's poised silence, that gave him pause. For a long moment, the parking lot was a frozen tableau. The mist, the flashing lights, the five men, and the silent, deadly focused dog. Then, new sounds cut through the night. Not sirens, but the powerful, purring engines of large vehicles. From both ends of the street, blacked-out SUVs with military-grade suspensions rolled to a stop, blocking the road entirely. Their headlights were off, but their amber parking lights glowed like predators' eyes. Doors opened and shut with solid, expensive thunks. Men emerged from the vehicles. They weren't in uniforms, but their clothing, dark, tactical, worn, was a uniform in itself. They moved with a fluid, predatory economy that made the two agents look like children playing dress-up. They fanned out, not rushing, but establishing immediate, unassailable control of the perimeter. One spoke into a wrist mic. Another had a rifle, not slung but held in a low-ready position, scanning the rooftops. The lead man strode directly into the center of the parking lot. He was maybe Sam's age, with a shaved head and a face that looked like it had been weathered by every desert on the planet. His eyes took in the scene. The cop, the two imposters, Sam, and Ajax, in a single, comprehensive sweep. He ignored everyone else and walked straight up to the two agriculture men. "Wallet," he said to the tall one, his voice a quiet rasp. The tall man blustered. "Who the hell are you?" "This is a federal." The bald man moved faster than Sam could fully process. There was no dramatic flourish, just a brutal, efficient motion, and the tall man was on his knees, his arm twisted behind his back, his face pressed into the wet asphalt. The bald man had the man's wallet out, flipping it open. He pulled a driver's license, studied it, then tossed the wallet to one of his teammates. "Mikhail Vasnov," the bald man read aloud. "Nice cover. Forgettable. Your buddies will be equally boring." He looked at the local police officer, who was standing utterly paralyzed. "Officer, these two are agents of a foreign intelligence service. They are attempting a kidnapping on U.S. soil. We'll be taking them into custody. You can file a report with your chief in the morning. He's already been notified." He finally turned to Sam. His eyes, a pale, icy blue, held no warmth, but there was a flicker of something, recognition, assessment. His gaze lingered on Ajax, who had not moved from his protective stance but had shifted his focus entirely to this new, dominant presence. The dog let out a soft woof, not a growl, but a signal. The bald man gave a single, slight nod, as if answering a question. Then he looked back at Sam. "Mr. Weller, we need to talk. But first," he said, his raspy voice dropping even lower, "we need to secure Ajax. The real threat isn't here. It's on its way. And they really, really want him back." The world had tilted on its axis. The familiar, gritty reality of the diner parking lot was now a stage for a drama Sam had no script for. The bald man's words hung in the misty air. They really want him back. Sam stood rooted, his mind racing. The two imposters were hauled to their feet by the tactical team, their earlier arrogance replaced by a sullen, professional silence. They were patted down with practiced efficiency, weapons, and communication devices confiscated. The local police officer was speaking urgently into his radio, receiving instructions that clearly left him baffled. The bald man stepped closer to Sam, his movements deliberately non-threatening. "Name's Cole," he said, the word an offering. "We don't have much time." That was the advance team. "Soft probe. The next one won't be asking nicely." "Who are you?" Sam managed to ask, his voice rough. "We're the people who know what Ajax is," Cole said, his eyes flicking to the dog. Ajax was watching Cole intently, his head slightly cocked. The rigid alertness had softened a fraction, replaced by a deep, assessing curiosity. "More importantly, we know what he was. And so does the other side." A cold deeper than the night air seeped into Sam's bones. He looked down at Ajax. This was his dog, his goofy companion who loved squeaky toys and stealing socks, his silent guardian who pulled him from nightmares. The idea of him having a past that involved foreign agents was absurd. And, yet, the precision of the ambush, the specific interest, Cole's lethal competence, it all pointed to a truth Sam had never suspected. He's a service dog. From a charity. For veterans, Sam said, the statement sounding weak even to his own ears. He is now, Cole agreed, nodding. But, before that, he had a different name and a different job. He was part of a joint procurement program. Very experimental, very classified. The project was called Guardian Source. He wasn't just trained for scent detection or attack. He was imprinted for a specific, high-value targeting protocol. Biometric, olfactory, behavioral. A living, breathing security key. Sam's mind rejected it. But, then, fragments clicked into place. Ajax's uncanny ability to sense Sam's panic attacks before his own body registered them. His almost preternatural awareness of new people and environments. The way he would sometimes stare at a blank wall or an empty corner as if tracking a ghost. Sam had attributed it to superb training. Now he wondered. The program was compromised, Cole continued, his voice a low, urgent monotone. The breeding and training facility was hit 2 years ago. A raid. We thought all the assets were destroyed or taken. We wrote them off. Then, 6 months ago, a whisper campaign started on dark web intelligence channels. Someone was looking, not for the program, but for one specific dog. Codename, Sphinx. They were offering a king's ransom for proof of location or recovery. Cole crouched down, slowly, holding out a closed fist for Ajax to sniff. The dog leaned forward, his nose working. He didn't lick or nuzzle. He sniffed, then looked up at Sam, as if for guidance. It was a trained response, but to what? Your charity, Cole said, rising back up, K9 Partners for Patriots. They get dogs from shelters, from breeders, from donations. We traced it. Ajax was a donation from a defunct private security contractor. The paperwork was a masterpiece of forgery. Someone slipped him into the system, knowing he'd be placed with a veteran, knowing he'd disappear into 1,000 just like him. It was a good hide. The best. Until tonight. The diner, Sam breathed, understanding dawning. The man filming. It wasn't just for reviews. Facial recognition, license plate, geotag, Cole confirmed. You didn't just defend your dog, Sam. You painted a bullseye on both of you in front of a camera that was linked directly to a foreign server. The SOF team got the alert, the location, and moved in to confirm and snatch. We've been monitoring their comms. We got here just ahead of their primary extraction team. As if on cue, Cole's earpiece crackled. He listened, his expression hardening to granite. Copy. ETA 3 minutes. Prepare to roll. He looked at Sam. That's the hard team. They won't be pretending to be from agriculture. They will kill everyone here to get that dog. We need to move. Now. The offer was unspoken but clear. Come with us, or stay and face them alone. Sam looked at his truck, his small apartment not 5 miles away, the fragile, hard-won normalcy of his life. It was already shattered. The men who were coming wouldn't care about his service, his PTSD, his rights. Ajax was a piece of high-value military technology to them, and Sam was the inconvenient owner. He looked at Ajax. The dog was watching him, waiting for a cue. In those deep brown eyes, Sam didn't see a piece of tech. He saw the creature who slept on his feet when the bed felt too big, who nudged his hand during fireworks, who gave him a reason to get up every morning. He was Sam's dog. That was the only provenance that mattered. Where to? Sam asked, his voice firm. A ghost of a smile touched Cole's lips. Somewhere safe. He gestured to one of the SUVs. Ride with me. Ajax in the middle. They moved quickly. Sam and Ajax were ushered into the back of the lead SUV. The interior was Spartan, all hardened plastic and mounted screens. Cole climbed in the front passenger seat. The local officer was now talking to one of Cole's men, receiving a thick envelope. Hush money, or instructions, or both. As the SUV pulled away with a surge of power, other vehicles and the team falling into a protective formation around them, Sam saw headlights turn into the far end of the street, several sets, moving fast. He saw the silhouette of a large van. The extraction team. They were seconds too late. The SUV accelerated smoothly, turning down a side alley, its navigation seemingly preordained. Sam sat in the dark, warm interior, Ajax pressed tightly against him. He stroked the dog's head, feeling the familiar ridges of his skull. Sphinx. Guardian source. The words were alien, terrifying. What happens now? Sam asked, watching the unfamiliar streets blur past. Cole didn't turn around. Now we debrief. We need to know everything Ajax has been exposed to, everyone you've met since you got him. Then, we figure out how to use the bait to trap the fisherman. He's not bait, Sam said, a protective edge in his voice. No. Cole agreed, glancing back, his pale eyes glinting in the dashboard lights. He's not. He's the mission. And, right now, so are you. Welcome back to the war, Sergeant. It never really ended for you, did it? Outside, the city lights streaked by, a river of normal life flowing past the armored glass. Inside, Sam held his dog close, realizing the battle in the diner wasn't the end of his trouble. It was just the first, loud shot in a hidden war he never knew he was part of. And the only weapon he truly trusted was the warm, breathing creature leaning into his side. The SUV didn't head for a military base or a government building. It navigated a labyrinth of industrial streets on the city's south side, finally, turning into the loading bay of a nondescript, windowless warehouse. The door rattled shut behind them, plunging them into a cavernous darkness before harsh fluorescent lights flickered on overhead. They were in a clean, operational hub. Workstations with banks of monitors lined one wall. Communication equipment hummed. Several of Cole's team were already there, their movements efficient and quiet. It felt temporary, a battlefield headquarters. Sam and Ajax were led to a partitioned-off area with a couch, a table, and a small fridge. Make yourselves at ease, Cole said, his tone now more clinical. We have about an hour before we need to relocate again. They'll track the vehicles eventually. A younger man brought over bottled water and a bowl for Ajax, filling it without being asked. Ajax looked at Sam. It's okay, drink, Sam said. The dog lapped at the water, but his ears remained on a swivel, tracking every sound in the vast space. Cole pulled up a chair, sitting opposite Sam. I need the story, Sam. From the beginning. How you got him. Sam took a long drink of water, the coolness helping to ground him. He spoke slowly, recounting the long, dark months after his medical discharge. The hypervigilance, the insomnia, the feeling of being a stranger in his own life. His therapist at the VA had suggested a service dog. The process through K9 Partners for Patriots had been lengthy: applications, interviews, home visits. Then, the day he'd been matched. They brought 3 dogs for me to meet, Sam said, his eyes distant. A Labrador, a Golden Retriever, and him. He was called Magnus then. He was aloof. Didn't seek affection. Just watch me. The trainer said he was a transfer, needed a specific kind of handler. Calm, structured. Sam gave a short, humorless laugh. I was a mess, but I guess my mess was predictable. Routine. He responded to that. When the lab got too excited and bumped my knee, I flinched. Magnus. Ajax. He moved between me and the other dog instantly. Not aggressive. Just inserted himself. The trainer said, he's already working. That was it. He detailed their training together, the 6-week intensive program. Ajax learned the standard tasks: interrupting anxiety loops, creating space in crowds, fetching medication. But he also displayed behaviors no one had specifically trained: alerting to Sam's rising blood pressure before a flashback, systematically clearing rooms when they entered, showing a particular, focused interest in certain types of electronics. The trainers had called it generalized high alertness and exceptional environmental awareness, a fortunate bonus. Did he ever focus on a specific person? For no apparent reason. Cole asked, taking notes on a secure tablet. Sam thought back. There was a mailman. New guy. Ajax would just sit and stare at him every day until he left the street. Never made a sound. I figured he just didn't like the uniform. And a contractor who came to quote a roof repair. Ajax positioned himself between us the whole time, just watching the guy's tools. The guy was nervous, sweating. I thought Ajax was making him uncomfortable. He probably was, Cole murmured. The tools might have had trace elements of certain explosives or compounds used in detonators. Or the mailman's gait or pheromonal signature might have matched a profile in his imprinting. He looked at Ajax, who was now lying at Sam's feet, eyes closed but not sleeping. He's a Swiss Army knife of threat detection. Biosensors, audio filters, pattern recognition, all wrapped in fur and instinct. The Guardian Source program was meant to create the ultimate special forces companion, not just for IEDs, but for identifying high-value human targets in a crowd, detecting chemical agents, even acting as a mobile data relay with subdermal implants. Implants. The word hit Sam like a physical blow. He instinctively reached down, his fingers probing through the thick fur at the back of Ajax's neck. He'd always felt a small, hard bump there, assumed it was a scar or a cyst from his puppy days. The vet had said it was harmless tissue. Cole saw the motion. It's a passive RFID and biometric transponder. Encrypted. It's how the program tracked their assets. It's been dormant. We think the charity's vet missed it, or the paperwork told them to ignore it. Can you remove it? Sam asked, his voice tight. We could, Cole said. But it's not emitting a signal. Removing it might cause more problems, infection, and it would tell the other side we're actively engaged if they ever got close enough for a scan. For now, it stays. It's part of his history. One of the techs called Cole over to a monitor. Sam watched as they spoke in low tones, the screens showing satellite imagery, traffic camera feeds, and strings of code. He felt a profound dislocation. This was the world Cole lived in. Shadows, signals, secrets. Sam's world had been about survival, about managing the internal battlefield. Now, the two had violently collided. Cole returned, his expression grim. Confirmation. The team that hit the diner parking lot was Russian military intelligence, a specialized cell called Zashida, protection. Their mission profile is asset recovery and denial. They don't just want Ajax back. If they can't have him, their orders are to terminate. The word terminate hung in the air, cold and absolute. It meant Ajax, and it almost certainly meant Sam, the only human who could give the dog commands. So what's the plan? Sam asked, forcing steel into his voice. He was a soldier again, briefed on a dire situation. We use the one advantage we have that they don't, Cole said, looking from Sam to Ajax. The bond. He's not their asset anymore. He's your dog. He will protect you with a level of dedication they never programmed. And you will protect him. We're going to a safe house, a quiet place. We're going to draw them in. But we're not setting a trap for a dog. We're setting a trap for the people who think a living creature is just a piece of hardware to be stolen. And you, Sam, are the key. Because you're the only one he truly listens to. He leaned forward. We need you to work with him. not just as a service dog, but to awaken the other training. The detection protocols, the threat identification. We need Sphinx for a little while to save Ajax forever. Are you willing? Sam looked down. Ajax had opened his eyes and was gazing up at him, trust absolute. In those eyes, Sam didn't see a code name or an implant. He saw his friend, his savior. He saw the life he'd been given back. He met Cole's gaze. What do you need us to do? For the first time, something akin to respect warmed Cole's icy eyes. We need you to remember how to fight. And we need you to trust him to fight with you. They're coming. And we're going to be ready. The warehouse, for a moment, felt less like a hiding place and more like a bunker on the eve of a long-awaited counterattack. The quiet veteran and his service dog were no longer just survivors. They were about to become hunters. The safe house was a secluded, rustic cabin nestled in a dense stand of pine trees, a 2-hour drive from the city. To any satellite or casual observer, it looked abandoned. But, inside, it was a hardened shell. Reinforced doors, bullet-resistant film on the windows, and a basement command post that hummed with quiet activity. For 3 days, Sam and Ajax adapted to a new, intense routine. It was a strange fusion of his old therapy and a new, brutal kind of training. Cole and a female operator named Rios, who had a background in canine handling, worked with them. They started with recognition. Using a tablet, Rios showed Ajax a series of rapidly flashing images: faces, clothing patterns, vehicle types. Ajax's responses were subtle: a slight stiffening, a focused stare, a soft woof. Sam learned to read these microsignals. The dog wasn't just seeing a picture. He was matching it against a deep, implanted database of threat profiles. Next was scent. Cole produced small, sealed metal canisters. Explosive precursors. Chemical agents. Don't worry, they're inert simulants. He would hide them around the cabin or the surrounding woods. Sam would give Ajax a simple command: find. It wasn't the cheerful search for a toy. Ajax's demeanor would shift into a silent, efficient mode. He would move with a slow, deliberate pace, nose working the air and ground, his tail still. When he found the canister, he wouldn't paw or bark. He would simply sit and look at it, then back at Sam. It was chillingly professional. Sam's own skills, long dormant, began to resurface. The hypervigilance he'd fought to suppress was now channeled, given purpose. He learned the cabin's sight lines, the patterns of the forest animals. Any change could mean an intruder, the schedule of Cole's perimeter patrols. He cleaned and familiarized himself with the sidearm Cole issued him. A familiar model, heavy and cold in his hand. He hated the feel of it, but he hated the thought of being defenseless more. Through it all, the bond between man and dog deepened, transforming. Ajax was no longer just a comfort animal. He was a partner, his capabilities revealing themselves layer by layer. Sam, in turn, became more than a handler. He became a unit leader of a team of 2. They communicated in glances, in touches, in shared silence. On the 4th evening, as a storm whipped the pines outside, Cole gathered them in the main room. Intel confirms it. Zashida Cell has triangulated our general area. They're conducting grid searches. They'll be here within 24 to 48 hours. We're not evacuating. This is the place. He laid out a topographic map. They'll come from the east, using the old logging road. They'll send a 2-man scout team first, then the main assault group of 6. Their orders are clear: secure the dog, eliminate all witnesses. No negotiations. Sam felt the old, familiar battle calm settle over him, the quiet before the storm. The anxiety was still there, a buzzing in the background, but it was overshadowed by a sharp, clear focus. He had a mission: protect Ajax. Protect himself. Our job, Cole said, pointing to Sam and Rios, is to be the bait in the trap. You two and Ajax will be here, in the cabin, visible. My team will be here, here, and here. He indicated positions in the woods. We let the scouts confirm the asset is present. When the main team moves into breach, we hit them from the flanks and rear. He looked at Sam. You and Ajax are the anvil. We are the hammer. Your job is to survive the initial breach. Barricade, hold, and distract. Can you do that? Sam looked at Ajax, who was sitting attentively by his chair, watching the map as if he understood every word. He placed a hand on the dog's head. We'll hold. The next day passed with a torturous slowness. The air itself seemed to thicken with anticipation. Sam went through his routines mechanically. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in an armchair by the darkened window, Ajax at his feet. He thought about the diner, the angry man, the manager. It felt like a lifetime ago, a trivial spark that had ignited this powder keg. Just before dawn, Ajax lifted his head. He didn't growl. He let out a single, quiet exhale, a puff of air through his nose, and looked at the eastern wall of the cabin. Sam's heart rate spiked, but his hands were steady. He keyed his radio, a single, whispered click. Movement. Cole's voice came back, a soft murmur. Copy. Scouts sighted. Hold fast. Minutes ticked by, each one an eternity. Sam saw nothing, heard nothing but the wind. But Ajax's focus was absolute, his head tracking unseen movement in the woods. Then, a faint, metallic snick from the direction of the front door. A lock being picked. Sam moved. He and Rios had rehearsed this. He grabbed a heavy bookshelf, tipping it over to create a barricade in front of the bedroom door, their fallback position. Rios took a covered spot covering the main room. Ajax stayed with Sam, a solid, warm presence against his leg. The front door blew inward with a deafening crash, not from picking, but from a small breaching charge. Smoke and splinters filled the air. Two dark figures rushed in, weapons up. They were met by Rios's controlled gunfire from her concealed position. One went down. The other dove for cover, returning fire. Sam, behind the barricade, saw a third figure appear at the blown-out window. He raised his pistol, the training taking over. Aim. Squeeze. The shot was louder than he remembered. The figure jerked back and disappeared. Chaos erupted outside. The staccato cough of suppressed rifles, shouted commands in Russian, the screams of men caught in an ambush. Cole's hammer had fallen. The main assault team was being torn apart in the tree line. But the battle wasn't over. The scout who had taken cover inside the cabin, wounded but desperate, made a decision. He couldn't win the firefight. But if he couldn't extract the asset, he could deny it. He pulled a cylindrical grenade from his vest, an incendiary. He primed it, aiming to roll it toward the bedroom, to burn the cabin and everything in it to ash. He never got the chance. As his arm drew back, a charcoal blur shot from behind the barricade. Ajax didn't attack the man's throat. He went for the weapon, a precise, vicious lunge that clamped onto the man's forearm with bone-crushing force. The man screamed, the grenade clattering to the floor, rolling away from the interior door. Sam was already moving. He vaulted the barricade, seeing the grenade, the pin pulled. He had seconds. He didn't think. He scooped it up, his body moving on a muscle memory older than his trauma, and threw it back through the shattered window, into the damp dawn outside. It detonated in a muffled whump, lighting up the trees with a brief, angry glow. The Russian scout was on the floor, clutching his ruined arm, Ajax standing over him, a low, continuous growl rumbling in his chest, the first truly aggressive sound Sam had ever heard him make. The growl wasn't just threat, it was finality. Silence descended, broken only by the crackle of flames outside, and the moan of the wounded man. Cole and his team entered, securing the cabin. Clear, Cole said, his eyes taking in the scene. Sam standing over Ajax, who held the would-be arsonist at bay. The operation was a brutal success. The Zashida cell was neutralized. In the aftermath, as the sun rose over the smoking pines, Cole approached Sam. Ajax, back in his service vest, sat calmly by Sam's side, the fierce guardian once again the steady anchor. It's over, Cole said. The cell is gone. The chain of command that sent them will assume the asset was destroyed in the firefight. You and Ajax are ghosts again. Sam looked out at the scarred forest, the adrenaline leaching away to leave a profound, weary emptiness. What happens to us now? You go home, Cole said. The story will be a gas leak at the diner, a tragic fire at an abandoned cabin. The local cops will have closed cases. The men who came for you never existed on paper. He handed Sam a new set of dog tags for Ajax, with updated microchips and paperwork. He's yours. Officially, finally, and forever. The Sphinx is buried. This is just Ajax. A week later, Sam pulled his truck into the lot of Meg's country diner. It was a different, quieter weekday afternoon. Debbie was there. Her eyes went wide, then filled with relief. Sam, we heard about the fire. We thought, just some trouble with the old truck, Sam said, offering a small, genuine smile. All fixed now. He took his corner booth. Ajax settled beneath the table with a contented sigh. Debbie brought coffee without asking. Meatloaf special? Please, Sam said. As he waited, his hand drifted below the table, resting on Ajax's head. The dog leaned into the touch. The feel of the small implant under his fingers was still there, a hidden scar from a secret war. But it was just a part of him now, like Sam's own scars. The door jingled, a family coming in. Ajax's ear twitched, tracking the sound, then relaxed. He was working, but it was the work Sam needed, the gentle pressure against his leg, the quiet monitoring of his heartbeat, the assurance of a loyal friend. The war had come for them, and they had fought it together. And now, in the warm, greasy light of the diner, with the simple, solid promise of meatloaf on the way, they had won something more valuable than peace. They had won the right to their own quiet life, a life built not on secrets, but on the unshakable bond forged in shadows and defended in the light. Sam took a sip of coffee, and for the first time in a long time, it just tasted like coffee.